Bottom line with construct validity is that you want to keep it high by only measuring what you want to measure. That means keeping other things out of the picture that you are not really trying to measure, like reading and writing, if it's not a reading or writing assessment, neatness, creativity, spelling, irrelevant background knowledge because of the examples you're using, cooperation or group work, all that stuff. Think about what students really need to succeed and then make sure that you give them everything that they need except for what you're really trying to measure. To do this, it's good to keep the reading level and the language demands lower than the grade level that you're teaching. And really, this matters, or it matters where your kids are or where your students are at. You just want to make sure that you are not pushing that boundary. So keep the sentence structure simple, keep the words simple, keep everything as simple as possible. And so because you're a grown-up, you have probably a better vocabulary and you have different knowledge than students, and they don't always know what you're talking about. And this gets worse as you get older, sadly. That leads us to criterion validity. And again, it's broken down into concurrent and predictive validity. Concurrent validity deals with questions where I'm trying to use multiple data points to try to figure out how something is, where predictive validity is all about trying to figure out how something will be, or the relationship or predictive power between one assessment and another, because the only way we can measure predictive validity is if both things have already happened. But the essential questions themselves are different. For concurrent validity, I'm using multiple sources to figure out what something is or was like at one given time. In a predictive validity situation, I'm trying to use one data source to predict what will happen for another data source. If we're focusing on concurrent validity is high when multiple sources of evidence all agree. So my homework grades equals my class participation and my classroom assessments, my course grade, and all these things are together. And boy, wouldn't it be great if that were the case. Whenever there are differences in any or all of these things, you have concurrent validity problems. And so the question is why? Well, in a lot of cases, it's because the assessments aren't really covering the same thing. They might cover different content or different parts of the content. So like, maybe it's about the Civil War, but what you focused on in the Civil War is not on the district test or not on the state test because there are so many different things that you could focus on. And so the content might be different. It might be different levels of cognition, where one test might be focused on a bunch of obscure facts, where you focused more on concepts, or you never really wanted them to build their own government, but that's what the assessment is requiring them to do. You might have other things being measured. So these are construct validity issues that we just talked about. Those first two were content validity issues. You might have different characteristics that make guessing more or less likely. We're going to call that a stability reliability issue next time. The grading system might be unreliable and prone to bias or mistakes. Poor evaluation processes, we're going to call that an inter or intra-rater reliability issue. Students have exerted different levels of effort on the different assessments. They try hard on homework or on the test, but not on the other thing. That's a stability reliability issue. We'll get to that again. The assessment conditions are different days' time, another stability issue, or the student is in a different state. They're tired, grumpy, stressed out, hungry, just got into a fight, or laser dialed in, focused, or they didn't take their medication. All reasons why you might get different results. When we think about predictive validity, well, that's again using one assessment to predict performance on another, and it's the highest when the time between the assessments is really short, the formats are very similar, the content validity is really high. In other words, the content on one assessment is, say, exactly the same as the content on another. And so you might be using pre-tests to try, or like practice tests to try to predict how students are going to do on a later test. There are no other knowledge, skills, or ability that are involved. So again, the constructs are the same. The motivation is the same of the students, and the conditions are the same. These are all ways to keep predictive validity high. And again, Another thing that we're assuming is that what we're trying to measure hasn't changed. So if I have a pretest and then I have a post-test, and I teach a bunch in the middle, I don't expect students' scores on the post-test to be the same as the pretest because they will have learned. And students who did really well on the pretest and knew everything can't really get any higher. But kids who didn't know anything but learned everything will have much higher scores. And so I won't really have any relationship at all. And I can't really use pretests to predict post-test scores. What pretests allow me to predict is where I should spend my time and who I should spend my time with and how I should spend that time. If we're thinking about the difference between concurrent and predictive, we could look at different questions like, do student ratings reflect teacher quality? And we're really getting at the essential question. Because both of these are looking at, is this a good teacher? It's a concurrent validity thing. I'm not wondering how this teacher will be in the future. I'm wondering, have they been or are they a good teacher? Typo here. Second one, do self-assessments match expert opinions of skill? This is another concurrent issue. I'm assessing myself, somebody else is assessing me. We're assessing the same thing at the same time, and do we agree? That's a concurrent validity issue. Does high school GPA predict or indicate college GPA? That's a predictive issue. Just like lesson plans for telling the quality of instruction or teacher interviews predicting first-year teacher performance. Those are predictive things. Other things, customer satisfaction, ratings of doctor skill. Again, this is kind of like the first example here. I'm trying to figure out, is this a good doctor or not? If I have a football scout in college and I'm trying to figure out who's going to be good in the pros, that's a predictive issue. I might have performance on assignments and exam performance. If I'm trying to use the assignments as a predictor of who needs to study or how I need to remediate, then it's a predictive issue. But if I'm using both to represent students' performance, then it's really a concurrent issue. And we're going to talk about this because how you set up your grading scale should be fair and should reflect how students are at the end of the day, not when they began, or not how they did along the way, but what they're taking with them really. So we'll talk more about that later. Parent feedback regarding child care workers' performance. Again, kind of a concurrent validity thing, same as the doctors or student ratings. First day chemistry as an indicator of long-term compatibility. That's predictive. Impressions during a test drive and car ownership satisfaction, more predictive. And when we're trying to, one of the things you'll be doing is looking at different scenarios and trying to pull out the relevant information about where the concurrent, construct, content, and predictive validity issues. And so here's a little list of things to look for. If there's any mention of standards, objectives, materials, instruction, or assessments and their alignment, that's a content validity problem. When we talk about alignment or things get changed and there's a mismatch, that's a content validity thing. If we talk about construct validity, any instance where you're measuring other stuff, it can be problematic. So that's where we think about constructs. So again, creativity, spelling, neatness, reading ability, all that stuff. Anytime I'm looking at multiple data points to figure out where students are or where they were, that's a concurrent issue. And anytime I'm trying to use current information from one or more sources to make a prediction about something later on, that's going to be a predictive validity issue. And so this should set you up pretty well for the next exercises. There are some questions online. There are also some practice quizzes and videos that I'll want you to walk through regarding what I want you to be able to do and to get ready for the first assessment. So if you have any questions, post them on discussion boards or ask me via email or in person if you see me. Otherwise, good luck.